Welcome back to the Boys of Spring Pod. I'm Ben Bellotti. We're joined with Pete Flaherty. Today is March 30th, and we're going to recap some college baseball. It was great last week in the college baseball. A lot of fun series, a lot of surprising ones too. But Pete, how are you feeling today? What's going on?
Hey, any day we get to talk about college baseball is a good one. We finally got some really good series and conference play that we'll talk about, and we got a lot to look forward to. So I'm excited to talk it all through with you.
Yeah, definitely. So what we're going to do today, maybe run down the top 25 rankings, are just baseball top 25 rankings, and just, go over series through that. So why don't we start with Tennessee? Peter Apple, one of co-founders of Just Baseball, proclaimed Ole Miss as the number one team in college baseball, then only for them to be swept by Tennessee, who then he goes, you know what? Maybe it's Tennessee. So, of course, us and pretty much every other publication had to put Tennessee number one overall on our top 25. I mean, they're 23-1 now, the 3-game sweep of Ole Miss. The bullpen's just firing on all cylinders. The whole pitching staff is firing all cylinders. What do you think about Tennessee, Pete?
I mean, like you said, it's such a complete team, top to bottom. I think this weekend was the first test, like true test for them against Ole Miss, which obviously they were the prior number one team, and obviously going down to Ole Miss, it's such a tough environment to play in, and they absolutely steamrolled them. Started off with their Chase Burns, who's been their Friday night stud. They hang a real crooked number those first 2 games of the series. The Sunday game's a little closer, but I mean, going back to talking about how complete they are, they've got kind of everything you want in a national championship contender. Like, they're really built to sustain the success. I don't think they're going to end up being 46-2 when it's all said and done because it's baseball. But they've got such a complete lineup with, like, the guy who's been the biggest surprise has been Jared Dickey at the top. He got no ABs as a freshman, comes in this year as kind of a utility type player. They use him in the corner outfield, catch him a little bit. I mean, he's just raked, and he's continued to do it against Ole Miss. And then Trey Lipscomb, Joel Ortega, Luke Lipschitz, and then the pitching staff. And then obviously like Jordan Beck and Drew Gilbert, but again, everyone knows about those guys. But the pitching staff is what's really blown me away.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I mean, like, Burns, Dollander, even true freshman Drew Beam has been outstanding. And then it's only going to get better when they get Tidwell and Seth Halverson back, which should be soon. Halverson is a little bit further away than Tidwell, I think, and then Ben Joyce, the internet sensation, who's probably going to throw in the big leagues this spring. So no, Tennessee, I think, is in a little bit of a class of their own after this weekend. And they're on the fast track to, I think, end up as a top 3 overall seed in the tournament.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying there. I mean, you mentioned Ben Joyce. He's just electric to watch. It's insane. Not even just because he throws hard, but I mean, his stuff is incredible too. Every pitch. You had to see the internet sensation, of course. You see the video where he just makes the hitter look absolutely like a little leaguer throwing a slider because he's geared up for 110 whatever mile an hour fastball, 104 mile an hour fastball, and it gets a slider that's not even touching the plate. It's in the grass basically, and he's getting check swings. I mean, dude just knows how to pitch.
That video was incredible because I think it wasn't really like, even for the stuff, like you said, it's just kind of a little bit of a snapshot
right
into, I think, the mind of a hitter and what a hitter's thinking when they go into the box against a guy like Ben Joyce, especially at the collegiate level where arms like this are so rare. I mean, everyone nowadays throws 95, but to be sitting 101 to 103 and touching 4s like Joyce is, as a hitter, there's really not much you can do. And this isn't to discredit any hitter. They're just up there. And I think at least this hitter was. Everyone's got their own approach. But, I mean, he's just thinking swing all the way. And, like, if he's going to swing under it, he's going to swing over it. That's going to get over his hands. But if Joyce, with the ability to rip off that slider, it was a brutal pitch. But, I mean, he can essentially throw it anywhere, and he's going to at least draw an active take. So, No, Joyce is outstanding. Tennessee is incredible. And I don't know. I think I've probably picked, like I've said, 7 teams are going to win the national championship. So I won't say Tennessee will to keep like my carousel going, but they're going to be a really tough team to take 2 of 3 from.
Absolutely. So with them, Tennessee moving to number 1 on our list, we have Ole Miss moving down to number 7. You think that they're going to get back to the number 1 spot? Do you think maybe they stick around in the lower, top 10, or I mean, what's next for Ole Miss? Do they bounce back, or is they're just going to stay complacent where they are right now? Which obviously I even hate saying staying complacent because they're still an amazing team. I mean, Tennessee was the one that took them down. That's two top teams, obviously. So I don't want to say get complacent, but are they going to stick, around 7, or are they going to jump all the way back up?
It's a good question. I'm interested to hear what you think too. Ole Miss is such a good team. There was a reason why they were the consensus number 1. They were kind of the Tennessee up until they faced Tennessee. Right. Pitching had a little bit of a down weekend, but that's not to say they're not a complete a complete staff. Derek Diamond, Jack Watt, like they're just fine. I mean, they're going to probably float in that maybe even 3 to 7 or 8 range. I really don't think anyone's going to overtake Tennessee for the top spot at this point. I know that the SEC gauntlet is unlike what anyone's going to see. They're going to see Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and it's such a complete conference top to bottom. So I think it's safe to say that Tennessee is going to stay up there. They're going to drop a series inevitably, I think. But no, I don't think Ole Miss is going to get back to the top spot, but I do think they're going to be a top 8 national seed, and Coach Bianco is going to have them ready to go. I'm interested to see how they do this weekend. It's a little bit of a trap series. They play Kentucky, and Kentucky's been a program in the SEC that's been overshadowed for so long because of the teams that we're talking about: Ole Miss, Tennessee, Vandy, Arkansas. The list goes on. But this year they're playing really good baseball. They lost, I would say, their best pitcher in Cole Stupp for the season, which was a huge blow. But they've got guys like Ryan Ritter, John Thrasher, not to go on a Kentucky tangent, but it's going to be interesting to see how Ole Miss bounces back because it's not a bad Kentucky team. So I'm curious to see how they respond.
I mean, absolutely. Definitely not a bad Kentucky team. I mean, 17-8 is not a bad record at all. They have wins against TCU, another ranked team. But no, I completely agree with you. I think Ole Miss is probably going to stay around right where they are. If not, maybe the highest they'll probably get again is 3. And I think it's because of what you hinted at is, their pitching's been good, but it's not to the level of a Vandy or a Tennessee. So their lineup just has to be that much better for them to beat teams the way they were beating them. And their pitching has to hold true too. I mean, if the lineup goes silent and the pitching is just average, a team like Tennessee is going to blow them out of the water. So I don't see how they get back to number 1. I also agree, though, that they're the team that could definitely be an 8 seed or even maybe higher in the tournament. So absolutely. But yeah, another team that had a really good weekend was Oklahoma State. They extend their winning streak. I think it was to 11 games. And they move up to our number 10 spot on our Just Baseball top 25. So, I mean, Oklahoma State, what's to say about them? What has gotten them on such a kick?
I think Oklahoma State was a team that I don't want to say that people wrote off, but I think they shoved them down a little bit, at least in their mind and narratives. I don't know, can't speak for all of the outlets, but they dropped 3 of 4 to a really good Gonzaga team. They get swept by them, and then they lose a corresponding midweek game to BYU. And so that's 3 of 4, and they're sitting at, I think it was 5 losses early on. They were around 500, and people were like, man, this offense really hasn't been doing much. The pitching's great, but they've really not been hitting. And so to see them respond like this has been big. It hasn't been against I'm trying to phrase this correctly, the biggest of powerhouses across college baseball, which I think is important to note. But to also realize that 11 games isn't a fluky winning streak, and this is still a really good team. But Seton Hall, they sweep, which is what they should be doing.
Yep.
I think the best win in there is DBU. They
Yeah,
beat
absolutely.
DBU. Yeah, and I know DBU is a team that you're high on, I'm high on. I think we're all high on here at Boys of Spring. So, no, I think the key for Oklahoma State is going to be obviously to continue this momentum into conference play, the meat of that schedule. I'm curious to see how they do tonight against Oklahoma. We'll know by the time this episode comes out because it's a rivalry game. Oklahoma's always a good team. And then they go to Kansas State on the road this weekend. So I think if their lineup can continue to hit, they've had some guys get hot lately. I know they're waiting for Marcus Brown is outstanding at shortstop. He's kind of gotten off to a little bit of a slow start. Nolan Mclean is another guy who's considered a day one pick by many. But if their lineup gets going, they're as dangerous as anyone in the country, I think. I know that we spoke really highly of them going into the season, and I think we had them in our top 5. So I'm really interested to see how they do in Big 12 play because they're going to have some very, very good tests.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the winning streak cannot be a fluke. I mean, when you go to win 11 in a row and, your lineup isn't even, not everyone's firing on all cylinders, it's not a fluke. It just shows that the team is meshing really well. So I think if they get that lineup going, maybe a couple of their starters pitch more consistent innings, not get hit around so much, or, the games aren't as close. They're going to be a scary team if they really get that lineup going because they clearly mesh well with, they have a couple of grad students, just a good veteran presence and mix of rookies that all are just doing great things together. So you get that lineup going, I think they're going to stay right where they are at the top 10 and continue to roll. So completely agree with you on that one.
Yeah. And Justin Campbell's been outstanding on the mound.
Absolutely.
I think a day one talent. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how they continue to play.
Yeah, me too, for sure. So they're our number 10 team on the rankings. The number 11 team is Louisville, who's now 19-5. Another team that, aside from their loss against Lipscomb, they were on a pretty nice winning streak coming in, rolling over teams like Notre Dame, obviously a sweep against Boston College, Michigan, the TCU, they're playing pretty good competition and they're rolling. So, I mean, they go from 21 on our list to number 11. Why do they deserve to be on the list aside from just, racking up all these wins?
Yeah, they're a team that that Notre Dame series really, I think, put the national spotlight on Louisville. Notre Dame at that time, I think, was ranked number one by some outlets.
They were.
And they beat them pretty good. It was a home series. They smoked them, I know, in that Saturday game, and then the Friday game was a little bit of a shootout, if I remember. So they're playing really good baseball, like so many teams are. But the biggest question for Louisville this year, and it's why I think a lot of people were down on them, was the pieces that they lost. They lost a lot from that lineup, obviously, starting with Henry Davis. Even guys like Cooper Bowman, he was a top 5-round draft pick, Alex Benelis, Lucas Dunn, and that's just on the offensive side of the ball. There were kind of really big question marks about who was going to pick that up and who was going to fill in for those guys. And I think we've seen Jack Payton, sophomore catcher, has swung the bat really well. Logan Beard, Christian Knapczyk. They haven't really missed a beat. Ben Metzinger has been a great surprise. I know that he's a player that has generated a little bit of draft buzz to be a somewhat early day 2 pick as we go on, and the pitching's been great. I don't know if it's been great, but it's been what they need. Michael Prosecki's he's been really good out of the bullpen. And then their rotation has been very good as well. Riley Phillips and Jared Poland spearheading it. So they're kind of returning to that old, prime Louisville, and Coach McDonald is such a good coach, and they're going to continue to roll. And they're another team that it's going to be so tough to take 2 of 3 from them. So I'm trying to think of who they play this weekend.
This weekend they got Pitt.
All right.
3 games against Pitt in the ACC. So
yeah, so they got Pitt this weekend. That's they should take care of business there. But looking ahead, I know they've got UNC. So
yep,
I'm really excited to see how they're looking going into that UNC series.
Yeah, the next 2 weekends for them will show a lot. As not this weekend, unless of course if they lose a series to Pitt, that will also show a lot. But the series against UNC and then Florida State coming up is definitely going to show. And then they get NC State right after that. The conference play, they're playing the 3 best teams in the conference aside from themselves. So that'll definitely show a lot. But I mean, you got to love what you've seen from them so far. I think everything you hit on was perfect, but the pitching has really been surprising to me, as they are performing so consistently and performing better than a team like Oklahoma State, who is, pitching well, but Louisville's pitching better. And, if they can continue this, I think I can see them climbing up the rankings or staying right where they are, judging on who they're playing. But it's just really impressive what they've done so far, jumping 10 spots in our list, as well as jumping a lot of spots in other publications lists as well. So great for Louisville. They're really fun to watch play. I can't wait to see more for them, especially the next 3 weeks from them. So yeah, absolutely. So LSU, they had a little bit of a mini resurgence after dropping at one point in the beginning of the year. They were in our top 5. Then, they go 16, now number 12. But what really stuck out to me was their win against the Florida Gators. They go 2-1 in the series play. They didn't blow them out or anything. It was just really well fought after games. So it kind of showed me that, LSU, even when their lineup isn't firing on all cylinders, scoring double-digit runs like we saw before conference play started, they can still get it done. And, they're becoming more of a complete team. And me personally, I would expect them to, stay around middle of the pack or even jump back up to where they are if that lineup really gets firing again. So what do you see with LSU?
Yeah, I'm with you. That the Friday night game was it was a tough way to start. It's really tough when you face someone like a Hunter Barco or a Jackson Wiggins, any high-end starter in the SEC. But Saturday and Sunday, I don't know what Jay Johnson said in the locker room after the game, but it lit a fire under their asses because they pounded Florida on Saturday and Sunday. They won, I think, 11-2, and then they'd come out and dominate on Sunday, and they win 16-4 to take that series. I mean, they're playing like pissed off baseball right now, and it's at the perfect time getting an SEC play. There are really no, I would say, pushover teams in the SEC. There are no,
definitely not.
You can't really take any breaks. So they're getting going at the right time in a tough stretch in their schedule. And the lineup is what it is. I mean, we keep harping on it week in and week out, and for good reason. It's Doty, Cruz, Barry, Morgan. Those are 4 guys that are probably going to be All-Americans, 3 of which will play Team USA, 2 are going to be day 1 draft picks with Barry and Doty. Cruz and Morgan will play Team USA, and that's as good a quartet. I think probably the best quartet that you can probably have in a lineup across the country. And even kind of underrated guys like Braden Jobert has swung the bat well. He's been a key in kind of the middle third of that order to top bottom third. He's been key to have production kind of top throughout the lineup. And Jordan Thompson, obviously at shortstop, the glove is elite, and he's been hitting well this year. And then they've got experienced guys. Giovanni Giacomo is hitting really well. And this weekend, it was really a collective effort. If you just kind of Braden Jobert had an outstanding season series and an outstanding season. He's doing great, but
yeah, 313, not too shabby.
Yeah, no,
7 homers.
The key for them is going to be the pitching. They're going to go as far as their pitching takes them. It was great that Blake Money is not really hurt at all. And then Reiselman, Fontenot, Ty Floyd. So they're an interesting team, but coaching is going to make a huge difference with them. They've had 2 legends now with Maneri and now Jay Johnson. And Jay Johnson's a guy who's been there to Omaha. He's won national championships, and they're going to perform really well in SEC play, and they're going to be a host, I think, for a regional.
Yeah, I'm looking forward way ahead. I'm really interested to see when the College World Series comes around. That I want to see what goes on, because we've talked about it time in and time out on this podcast when we've done appearances on the other podcasts. Pitching is the thing that wins the championship. It's the thing that gets you far in the tournament. And Blake Money coming back is going to be huge for them, especially if he can find his groove again. But the rest of the staff is something, that's got to be their biggest hole. Their starter, I mean, their relievers are up and down, but their starters are just not consistent at all either. And definitely the biggest hole in the team. And it really just makes their lineup have to work like twice as hard. So for me, that's going to be interesting to see going forward. Maybe if they can get a little confidence in there and, maybe it'll become something that's not too bad and we'll even them out. But for now, the lineup's going to have to keep on mashing.
Yeah, and I think they will. Talking about especially those 4 to 5 guys, that's a group that's going to be able to sustain ample success. And like you mentioned, Blake Money carries that load in the rotation, but Ty Floyd has come around as of late, and he's going to be a huge key. And then getting consistency out of the back end with Reiselman and Fontenot is that's going to be huge for them. And I mean, like we've said, they've got the raw talent to win a national championship. I don't think anyone's doubting that. The biggest thing is, as is for any team, is just clicking at the right point. And
right.
I think that this weekend was a preview and harbinger of that kind of being the case. So I'm very excited to see them march through that SEC schedule.
Yeah, it's going to be really entertaining. The whole SEC is just awesome. But moving away, we got Miami coming back into the top 25, going from unranked last week in our rankings to now number 16th overall. Huge jump. What did they do to get to this, back to this point and reach number 16 over Notre Dame, over Georgia Tech? A lot of teams that we like on there, they're over right behind Arizona and Florida are number 16. So what did they do to reach back and to get back into the top 25?
Well, simply put, they swept a really good North Carolina team. Right. North Carolina was a team that we had in the top, I believe, 15, maybe even top 13 or so going into this weekend. And Miami really took care of business. They did it on the backs of really, really good pitching performances from Alejandro Rosario. They've really they've expected a lot out of him, and this weekend was a very good start and what they needed. Carson Ligon, a freshman for him, has been outstanding and has taken on that Saturday role. And then offensively, they've kind of been waiting for consistent production. CJ Kafis has been very good for him so far at the top of the order, first baseman. Great bat to ball skills, hits the ball really hard, good athlete over there. But this weekend was the Yo Morales show. He's their anchor on the left side of the infield, third base shortstop. He was outstanding, and North Carolina's pitching staff is really good. And he just banged all weekend. He had a couple home runs, was hitting the ball really hard. And I know he was waiting for kind of a coming out series like this, as was the Miami coaching staff. Everyone knows the type of talent he has. So I think that was a key reason why. And then if you look at their pitching staff and kind of the team as a whole, they're an interesting group. Putting them back up from unranked to 17th is a big jump, but when their pitching staff's on with Palmquist, Rosario, Liggins, and Andrew Walters out of the back end of the bullpen, it's on par with a lot of the pitching staffs that people kind of put in that top tier in the country. But again, the key is just going to be for that lineup to hit. They've got Kafis and Morales. And then it's all about just filling out production throughout the rest of the order with, I know, Lorenzo Carrier, the freshman, Don Patelli. So again, they're I think they're a tough team to solve because, I'm even wrestling with it as I speak, but it's been a tale of two teams. They've looked great one weekend. They've looked not so great the other. And it's just going to be if they can sustain this production. And when they're going like this, like after this UNC series, they're no doubt a top, however many teams, 17 team in the country. So they're another team that I'm really looking forward to seeing how they do against the ACC, which is a great conference, top to bottom, I think. So curious to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you said it perfectly. There's been so many ups and downs early in the season. Really slow start, and then you get some wins against a big team like Clemson, and then you really come back and beat UNC, a team that was ranked really high on a lot of people's lists. And I think it's going to be the lineup. You need more than 2 to 3 guys to get going for them to sustain this, and I really think they will. I mean, you're going to get some confidence beating UNC. You've already beat other ranked teams like Clemson. A sweep against Boston College or 2 out of 3 against Boston College doesn't hurt either. They have a good lineup. They beat Florida one time, lost a series, but they've proven they can beat teams that are ranked high, and I think they'll continue to do so. The ups and downs hopefully will even out into just consistent ups, or maybe instead of sweeping, you just take 2 or 3 and just continue to do that. That's what So I'm not worried about them at all, and I think that they're in a good spot right now to keep on rolling. The schedule favors them. I'd like to see what they do this weekend against Duke. I think that's going to be really interesting. Not a ranked team, but a really good team. And if they can take care of business against Duke, I think hopefully it's enough confidence for them to keep it going the next weekend and go up against a really, really tough team in Virginia, who we haven't even talked about, but is absolutely on a tear and fighting for that number 1 ranked spot. And yeah, it's just going to be interesting to watch for sure. But yeah, so moving on, we got Yukon still in the top 25, a Yukon team that you and I both really liked. We were talking about before. We've talked about it, texted about it, everything. This is a team we really like. The pitching staff is really good. They're still a good team at 17-5, but my question for you is, do you think they still deserve to be in our top 25 after, Saturday take a loss against URI? I mean, yes, they did take 2 out of 3 from them, and it's hard to sweep a series, but the URI team just really not that good. And then lost to Boston College minutes before we started recording. What do you see with why this team's dropping losses to teams they theoretically should be taking care of business as a top 25 team?
Well, first, brutal timing for Yukon. Like right before we record, they drop a tough one to BC.
Yeah,
team next week. But it doesn't change my opinion on them as it doesn't change my opinion on them as a team. I think they're the class of the Northeast. I think as far as who's most likely to make a run to a super regional, and even as a dark horse Omaha team, that rotation's been really, really good with Austin Peterson and Pat Gallagher up at that Friday, Saturday role. Peterson was a guy they got from Purdue, and he's been really loud, really, really loud this spring. And the lineup is a bunch of veteran guys that have been there for a while. They know what it takes to win. Eric Stock, they bring in Ben Huber. Casey Dana is a guy that we really like.
Yep.
Yeah, shout out Ocean State Waves. Matt Donlin behind the dish. It's a really, really, I don't want to say scrappy because they pulverize the baseball. But it's a group that top to bottom is going to be, they're all tough outs. They're going to pitch. And they're going to make a regional. It's going to be so hard to host, especially as a Northeast team. I don't know if I'd put them in that category, but they're going to be a really good 2 seed, maybe even like the number 1 overall 3 seed. But going back to your point about the URI game, baseball is just so random. Like anyone can beat anyone on any given day. It's obviously you don't want to drop a game to a URI, but it happens, and they bounce back on Sunday. They win the series, and you kind of forget about it. So I'm interested to see if they can do the same against. I think they play Kent State this weekend.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm interested to see if they can do the same against Kent State.
Yeah, Kent State's a scrappy team, so hopefully they can do the same, and I think they will. I once again agreeing with everything you're saying. I mean, Coach Penders is just a guy that really knows what he's doing when, you put together a ball team, but they recruit so well, and then they go out and get the transfers. It all meshes together well, and, it just comes together, and they become a team that, rolls over teams and puts up a fight when they're not getting it done on all cylinders. So I'm not worried about Yukon. I know I posed the question, but that's just more to, get an answer out of it. I think they do deserve to be in the top 25, and I love to see a Northeast team in the top 25. I really do. But yeah, so now, that's our top 25. You can find the entire top 25 on our Instagram. There will be a write-up on justbaseball.com. But let's look ahead a little bit for a couple exciting series. The one, obviously, that stands out, mentioned it before, is Vanderbilt and Tennessee with a 3-game set starting this Friday. To me, I know Tennessee's lineup is doing really well and Vanderbilt is starting to come around, but this has got to be a war between the pitching. I mean, the two teams with the top team ERA in all of NCAA. I mean, Tennessee leads is number 1 in ERA. They have a team ERA under 2. It's just unheard of. What are we looking forward to in this series?
And there's really everything to look forward to. I mean, I might be watching both these games instead of the Final Four. Honestly, they're going to be that high quality of baseball between. You can make the argument between the two best teams in the country,
right?
And then it's going to be strength on strength. I think. Obviously, we talk about Tennessee's pitching being really good this year. But Vanderbilt historically has had that nails pitching staff. The guys you can rely on top to bottom, no holes. So it's going to be Vandy's pitching staff against that lineup from Tennessee where everyone 1 through 9 can mash. So going up against guys like Pat Riley, Christian Little, Carter Holton, Nelson Berkwich, Chris McElvain, I could name the entire Vanderbilt pitching staff. That is going to be as big a test for Tennessee as they're going to see all year, especially on the heels of that sweep against Ole Miss. They go to Vanderbilt. If they can come out of those 2 series with 5 wins, so 2 series wins, that's as loud of a performance as you can get, I think, in college baseball, at least this year. So I'm really excited to see what happens. I know Vanderbilt's going to be ready to play. Tony Vitello always has his guys fired up to play, as does Corbin. So it is going to be a fun series. And I have no clue who's going to win the series. So if we do another episode this week, I'll give my prediction then. But it is as big a coin flip as you can get, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just strength on strength, and it's going to be. I don't see how either pitching staff really just goes out of the gate and just loses it right then and there. It's going to come down to which lineup can be the most consistent, or even go above and beyond, if you will. Yeah. So I don't know who's going to win either. I will say, I think if Tennessee does get 2 out of 3, or even just another 1 win, I think that really proves that they are the solidified number 1 best team. But I'd be really interesting to see what we think after a full weekend and this another, a couple games midweek of if Vanderbilt pulls off a sweep against the number 1 Tennessee overall. I wouldn't be surprised if we put Vanderbilt number 1 next week.
I
don't think it's gonna happen, but it would be pretty cool.
Interesting hypothetical. If Vanderbilt were to sweep, that's a good question. I don't know. I tune into the podcast and our Twitter, and you'll be able to find out first. But yeah, no, we'll see. I have my prediction. I think, whatever. I think Tennessee's going to win. They're on such a roll right now, and I think that they're the best team in the country. I think it's going to be an outstanding series, though, and it's going to be decided on Sunday. I think Tennessee wins 5-3, 6-4 on Sunday to win the series.
What a prediction. I like it. I really do. So another good series, or it should be at least. We got Arkansas. Arkansas is now Number 4 ranked on our list, still top 5, still an absolute wagon of a team. They're going to go up against Mississippi State. So my question to you is, if Mississippi State can pull off a series win against Arkansas, do you think Mississippi State gets their another chance to be in our top 25?
That's a great question. Mississippi State is a team that's quietly really started to turn around. You look dating back to last Saturday against Georgia, they dropped that game 12-11. That was a bananas game. But they dropped that one in extras to lose that series. But then they pound them on Sunday. They win a series against a really good Alabama team at home. Midweek win against, I think, Southern. And now they're kind of right back there. They're 500 in the conference. I think they're 15-10 overall. If they could beat Arkansas at Arkansas, I'd have no problem putting them back in my top 25. Arkansas is another team that is in that. I think that we were talking about it before we recorded, that like cluster of 5 to 7 teams who you can call title contenders at this point, at least. So yeah, they're a team that's playing quietly really good baseball. I say quietly because everyone wrote them off after Sims went down in that slow start. So I think a series win against Arkansas is that would absolutely, in my mind, put them back into the top 25. And I know I'm the resident Mississippi State hater. I think at Just Baseball. So yes, to me, even they're a top 25 team if they beat Arkansas.
There you go. But let me just talk about Arkansas a little bit. I have been obsessed with watching Michael Turner play, not just because he's a former Ocean State Wave, but I mean, it's just awesome to see a catcher like him put up the numbers he's having, over an average over 300. He has pop with over 4 home runs, getting it done, getting on base, walking. I mean, their whole lineup is basically just all these guys that are just gritty. They do a little bit of everything. They just, above all, they get on base. I mean, there's 4 or 5 guys with an on-base percentage above 400, above 430 even. I mean, Arkansas is they're just a great team overall. I mean, the pitching has been really consistent too. A couple guys in, the back end that have struggled a little bit. You're lost without Cops, but I mean, everything's been great for them. I mean, Connor Nolan, my gosh, he pitched fantastic over the weekend. 47 strikeouts in 34 innings overall in the season is absolutely insane. I know I'm the resident Arkansas lover, and I'm going to continue to be. I would love to see Arkansas keep rolling this weekend, but also wouldn't hate if Logan Tanner, Mississippi State, get it done against Arkansas and prove that they deserve to win last year, obviously, and they're going to keep fighting to win this year. So why not?
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree. Like you said earlier, it's always been the Ocean State Waves. So
always goes back to
Michael
that,
Turner. No, but I'm with you. That another arm to watch on that staff is Brady Tigert, and in the back end of the bullpen, he's approaching must-watch territory. Every time he pitches, I
think he had three saves last weekend.
He's a frequent member of the Pitching Ninja Gift Club. He had like 8 swords last weekend. His breaking ball is, I think, above like 3,100 RPMs. Really good arm action. He's got a fast arm. Ball just explodes out of his hand. And we're talking about Mississippi State. This is a huge if they can beat Arkansas on the road, because as Ben was saying and even reminded me, they're another team that is a very complete bunch, Arkansas.
Yeah, love that. But let's go to another team we love, Wake Forest against Georgia Tech. The battle between two teams in the lower end of our top 25. We have Georgia Tech as 18 and Wake Forest as 21. Wake Forest is a team that we've talked about. We really love their pitching. I think we might be the only publication right now with them ranked. And they go up against another ranked team in Georgia Tech who has been struggling a little bit. I think if Wake Forest personally takes care of business, I think we'll see them ranked on a lot of people's lists. And I think they deserve to even move up a little bit because their pitching has really been getting it done. And their lineup is just very consistent with the guys that are a lot of fun to watch. What do you think about this series?
Well, I will say it's so hard to keep up with all these team schedules and the conferences.
Absolutely.
Georgia Tech and Wake played a couple of weeks ago. and Wake took it to them. That was the infamous, I think, 27 run game.
Yeah, that's right.
And Wake actually has Wake's got BC this weekend, so I think Wake is going to take care of business against BC. I mean, you talked about it, bringing them up as a team. They're kind of my Wake is to me as Arkansas is to you. I really, really like them a lot. Yes, they lose to UVA this past weekend, but UVA is I think they're going to be in Omaha, and you look at that pitching staff, Lauder, Hartle, McGraw, the lineup is inevitably going to get really clicking with Brock Wilkin, Danny Corona, Adam Cesare, Nick Kurtz at the top of the order. No, so I think Wake is I think they're going to enjoy a nice week. They've got Coastal, which has always been a bugaboo for them, especially in a midweek. I have no idea why. And then they go to BC on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think that's a series they take care of pretty, I don't want to say easily, because BC can really swing it, and they've got a few good arms, but that's a series a ranked Wake Forest team, at least in our eyes, should win. But Georgia Tech, they've got a monster series against UVA this weekend. That is going to be a real challenge for them, especially coming off of 4 straight losses. The Kennesaw midweek, and then a sweep against NC State, where they didn't really get outplayed by that much. But man, they go to UVA, and that, you want to talk about wagons, that team is freaking bananas. Geloff is my guy for the Golden Spikes. Pitching rotation has been outstanding. They're right there with Tennessee for me as the best team in the country. So this is a real challenge for Georgia Tech. They obviously, taking a series is such a big ask against a UVA, but even just taking one, I think they're hoping to get Chandler Simpson back this weekend, who makes that offense go at the top. So if they can, assuming they win against Charleston Southern today, and they can just take one of those UVA games, obviously a series winner, a sweep would be monumental, but just to get kind of get the train back on the track a little bit and avoid something disastrous like 7 of 8 or 8 of 9 losses. So Danny Hall is a great coach, and Georgia Tech is a good team. And I think they at least take one. They might surprise some people and take the series.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. And then just looking at Virginia's upcoming schedule, they got a lot of potential, not for them, but for other teams in our rank list to make up some ground. I think it's interesting that they got Miami, Liberty before Miami in the next upcoming weekends, and then Old Dominion. So they go Liberty, Miami, Old Dominion right after that Georgia Tech series. So a lot of time for other teams on our top 25 to make up some ground if they can somehow get past the wagon of Virginia, which, is going to be probably the toughest thing they do all season, would be playing them at this point in the season.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Georgia Tech's got a brutal stretch. Just looking at it, like UVA, FSU, UNC, Mercer midweek. I mean, this is, I think, put up or shut up time for Georgia Tech. And I'm really, really excited to see how they respond to a schedule like this. And like you said, and it was a great point, this is the time of year where, so many of these ranked teams are going to start to beat up on each other. So I'm very curious to see who are kind of the contenders and who are the pretenders, to use a cliche. But no, I'm excited for this weekend and going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the next 2 weeks are going to be some of the most exciting college baseball we see, especially because we still have, that little buffer before MLB starts and really takes over the baseball scene. So I really do think there's a bunch of upcoming series that are absolutely fantastic, going to be absolute great baseball. It's going to fill that void for all of you that are longing for MLB. Vanderbilt, Tennessee is probably going to be the closest thing we see to Major League Baseball right now. And then, just going to keep on rolling the week after. A lot of great series. So, Pete, I think I said everything I got to say. Do you have any closing thoughts for the people?
No, man, another great week with you, chopping it up. And, we hit it all. We talked about the top 25, what to watch for this weekend, and we'll see how we did. I don't know if we'll record on Thursday or not, TBD, but when we're back here next week, I'm excited to talk about it all. And hopefully we'll get Miller on here. And I'm trying to think of players to watch for this weekend. I did it on the first few episodes. I'll see if I can whip up a few for this one. I'll go Wyatt Langford at Florida. I'm going to kind of go with guys that aren't household names. I'll go Wyatt Langford at Florida. Brennan Malone at Oregon. And this is like brutal podcast. Corey Collins at Georgia. Mixed bag, but I think they're going to put together good weekends.
Love that. Yeah. So look out for more articles about college baseball on justbaseball.com. I know Miller's going to be cooking up a bunch. Look out for another podcast episode, TBD. Like we said, we're going to record again, but I wouldn't be surprised if we have another episode coming out. Subscribe to our Twitters. Subscribe to the show Twitter at Boys of Spring JB. And it was just great talking to all of you. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Subscribe to the Just Baseball YouTube.
Yes, sir. Subscribe to the YouTube. Thank you, everybody.